Hey everybody, thanks and welcome to another edition of the IJA weekly webinar after show. I'm trying out a shorter title for this program, so IJA. I don't know if that works or not, but we'll see. So thanks for having joined us for this webinar, yet another edition of the Commercial Property Masterclass, and this one was excuse me, additional coverages, coverage extensions, and optional coverage, and was hosted our erstwhile director, Mr. Patrick Brait, and who I'm joined by here today for the after show. And Patrick, this is a class that we give all year long, almost in different monthly installments. Where does this where does this iteration of that rank among your favorites, or to give, or the most important, or how, where does this kind of stack up against the others that we've given so far this year?
Wow. Asking about which is a favorite class, that's kind of like almost which is your favorite kid. Not really, but it sounded good to say. Anyway, I've enjoyed going through the commercial property master class, and probably this probably ranks fairly high for me. Hard to put it. And as far as importance goes, these are the kind of coverages where without an appropriate knowledge of what's actually covered and what's not, and maybe some ways to go about changing that coverage, um, can really turn around and bite you if you're not prepared for some of the exclusions, some of the limitations that are out there.
Well, I was asking because this class deals with some off the beaten path kind of esoteric coverages, if you will, and so I mean, as far as optional coverages go that you talked about today, which of the which of those are sort of the most important, or on a you must know basis, not even a need to know basis, but really be thinking about these when you're talking about this kind of coverage, this kind of policy?
Sure. I'd say that replacement cost coverage as an optional coverage it it's listed as an optional coverage, and many times it's referred to as not the default method for valuing property. But when it comes down to making sure that the insured gets the money that they expect to receive in the event of a loss, replacement cost coverage is probably number one on my list. As far as understanding how it works and with the benefits of it, not just the replacement cost, but I would extend that thought to um, the my mind has blanked on me. Um, Inflation guard. There we go. The inflation guard coverage, because that coverage, there's no guarantee that it'll keep pace with inflation, right? So when you renew a policy, it's always good practice to make sure that the valuation is reasonably accurate, but using the inflation guard coverage can kind of help bridge that gap year to year and during the policy term as well.
So in terms of preservation of property, why is that in your estimation, or as we've gone along, considered all risk coverage? Because you said that, and I was just wondering why that was.
Sure. In general, um, we don't like to use the term all risk because in generations back that's gotten folks into trouble. In particular, talking about special coverages where coverage is provided unless excluded or limited somewhere else. But the preservation of property, that's really all risk coverage. The policy reads such that if you're trying to preserve your property from being either it's in danger of being damaged by a covered cause of loss, or other property has been damaged by a covered cause of loss. If you're going to remove it, take it to somewhere else, the policy is providing very broad coverage for that property. For example, um, there's not a lot of coverage available for property that's in a vehicle going down the road. But if a client has loaded up half the inventory of their store in a box truck and they're going to take it down the road, maybe take it to storage, maybe just put it in their garage at home to try and keep it safe, and something happens to that property, if they're moving it because it's endangered from a covered cause of loss, then that property's covered for whatever happens. It could be a flood at a storage unit or whatever. So it really is all risk coverage.
And that leads me to another question, segues into my train of thought, which was in terms of the commercial property policy. You probably just gave a glimpse into that, but why are there so many additional coverages, or even just additional coverages and coverage extensions in the commercial property policy? That's
Sure.
just those tangential kind of, they could have the contents of their store in a vehicle. I mean, is that why it's such a broad kind of policy and they need that kind of coverage or coverages to go
Sure.
along with it?
When you look back at earlier in our commercial property masterclass, we talked about covered property and property not covered. And when you get down to what the definition of covered property is, you've got a really very restricted definition of covered property. Not that it's going to be not that there's not a lot of covered property, but it's restricted to specific locations and specific things. Your additional coverages allows the policy to provide additional money when something else happens. For example, if there's been a fire at the insured building, somebody has to come by and clear up all the rubble from the fire, whether there's a lot of it or a little bit, or if there's been a hurricane and parts of the building are in the front yard or in the backyard for that matter. There's got to be some coverage to get all of that property, all of that used to be building or used to be good property that's now debris, and get rid of it, because there's a cost associated with that. The coverage extensions are just ways to allow coverage to extend past what would be normally considered covered property. So what an example is that there are items of covered there are certain things called outdoor property, talking about fences, radio television antennas, trees, shrubs, plants, things like that are listed in the property not covered. But then we come to the coverage extensions and we provide a restricted amount of coverage for those items. So it's not truly property not covered. That's why it makes insurance kind of interesting and frustrating at the same time, because in one spot we say, no, you don't have any coverage. And in another spot we say, well, there's a little bit of coverage.
Gotcha. And in the last couple months, debris removal has been like a sub theme or subset or subtext of our webinars. And I'm going to put this out there. I think we should do a webinar at some point just about debris removal. I mean, that's a hot topic. That's a hotter topic than you think, or it's the kind of topic that you don't know, which is what insurance is for, that you don't know you need to know more about until you actually think about it. So I'm on team debris removal in terms of a future webinar topic. And speaking of future webinar topics, our next webinar is August 20th, and the instructor for that is Casey Roberts, and that is significant business auto endorsements. And okay. I didn't know if you want to say 2 or 3 things or more things or less things about that.
So it's always a joy to have Casey join us. I mean, he's got a very he's got a great voice in that he not just the sound of it, but the way he teaches, and he's always brings with him some real insightful knowledge for us, and for him to do a class on significant business auto endorsements. That's probably, if you do any business auto, that would be something that you should probably pencil in and get ready to enjoy that.
Absolutely. Great. I couldn't have put it better myself. So, Patrick, thanks for your time. Thanks for letting me grab you for the after show, the IJA weekly webinar after show. I don't know if that's more of a toe tapper than the extended title, but I'm going to keep working on
It's
it.
not bad.
It's better. Okay, good. Well, thank you so much. And everyone, thanks again for having tuned in this week. And we look forward to seeing you August 20th for our next weekly webinar. So thanks, everybody, and stay safe and have a great day.
Thanks, George. Take care, everybody.